Hey, it's Monday and time for another Monday Mastery. I'm Rick Soderbeer, author and dating coach, and we'll wait for just a couple of minutes to get a few people on here and start talking about dating and relationships and anything else that comes up that you're interested in talking about. I've had a couple of people. Hey, Sylvia, thanks for joining in. Glad you're here. I want to share a couple of things. I took a couple of weeks off, and that's kind of what prompted today's Monday Mastery in starting over. And a couple of weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, for those of you that were on that last broadcast, I told you that I was having surgery, which I did 2 weeks ago today, and everything's fine. I had a little hernia that a little umbilical hernia that finally, after about 26 or 27 years, I wanted to get taken care of. Hey, Shar, welcome back to you too. And last week I just wasn't up for a chat. I was kind of brain dead. I think it was a little leftover haze from the anesthesia. And so anyway, it's given me a couple of weeks to clear my head and think about the direction that I want to take my practice, the direction I want to take this broadcast or this show, and just kind of take some new directions. And because part of the reason for this is I was feeling grossly overwhelmed with all of the things that I do that are just kind of ancillary things, my blog, the videos that I do. And it was just kind of piling up and saying, it just, because I'm writing new content every week, and I've had some conversations, especially with my daughter, and she's brilliant when it comes to marketing and coming up with great ideas. But we're going to take a different tack. I'm going to leave this program alone, and we'll be here every Monday. I may take a couple of breaks here and there, but if I do, I'm going to learn how to record or save the recording of this and for playback at some other time at a later date. So anyway, with that being said, I'm back. I'm feeling better and just enjoying life. Now, that being said, I'm just looking out my window here, and I've got two firemen and a paramedic walking through my parking lot. That doesn't look healthy. So you never know what might happen here in a few minutes. But one of the things that I want to do is start talking about starting over. This is, to me, this week feels a little bit like starting over. We're going to, and we all go through it, whether it's business wise, whether it's professionally or in a relationship, and sometimes sometimes starting over can be, getting back together with somebody or repairing a broken situation, something that is fixable or potentially fixable. Or it's about ending a relationship and moving on. Starting over can mean a lot of different things to every one of you. And for those of you that are here right now, tell me what starting over is like for you, or what it means to you. For me, a lot of times, when we're talking about relationships, it can be brutal. Because we've just lost somebody. Typically, we've just lost somebody in our life, and there's a hole. And the idea of starting over can be daunting. It's where and if you've been out of the dating world for a while, a lot of you come to me and say, well, where do I start? The things have changed so much, and when I first started dating, oh, almost 50 years ago already. Wow, that just dated myself. Uh, when I started dating 50 years ago, you had to, at least the boy had to ask the girl out. It wasn't a text message. You either had to do it in person or you had to call on the phone. And for me, calling on the phone is just, and I don't know why. It's just sheer agony. It's the fear of failing, I guess, for something, for anything that just comes to mind. And that's actually a basic fear that I have today. If I had to start cold calling for business, I'd be going crazy. I'm just not a fan of cold calling, or just calling people. And even if I know you and I were asking you on a date, the anxiety would be incredible. And Shar says, I feel like I have been starting over for 4 years now. Lost Al and lost myself in the process. I have also started over on 3 attempts at new relationships since then. Growing weary of starting over. Yeah, Shar, I know it. And that is, Shar, that is one of the hardest parts of, especially, after I know a little bit of your story you've shared with me. We've talked, plus what you've shared here. You had an awesome relationship, but you also have to understand that, or I hope you understand that again, you're looking for that second needle in a haystack relationship, and those just don't roll around every day. And while it is discouraging, it sounds like you had about roughly 1 relationship a year since you lost Al. But one of my observations, and I'm not being critical, it's an observation. What I found is that it generally takes ladies about 5 years to really get to a healthy point after losing someone, because there's just so much that you have to go through. The first year is basically a fog. And maybe yours is a little different, Shar, but for most people that have been widowed tell me that, yeah, they just kind of went through the motions for the first year or so. And then it sounds like, if you've had 3 relationships since then, it sounds like you're hopefully you're learning some things about relationships and about yourself in that time. But I promise you, if you're I'm going to jump ahead here. Shar says the first year was a complete fog. Yeah, exactly. And the whole idea is that if you try to introduce someone new, and I've made this mistake of letting friends set me up with someone that was widowed. We dated within the first year of her being widowed, and I learned huge lessons from that. And that there's just so much going on in your life that it's just a terrible thing to do to your friends, is to set them up with somebody after such a short period of time. And they were well-meaning friends, and they're good people, but it's just so difficult to move forward for that first year. Hey, Lynette, thanks for joining in. Lynette says, hard, less interested in dealing with other people's problems. I wanted to enjoy my last chapter with just a nice person who's kind, enjoyable, brushes his teeth. Yeah, that's good hygiene. I've done a couple of blogs on hygiene. That can be a real turnoff. But and Lynette, you've got the right you've got the right attitude. You've got to find somebody that's emotionally healthy, and that's a lot of and for Shar and actually for all of you, that's a huge acknowledgement. It's to be able to find somebody emotionally healthy, and the ones that you find that are not emotionally healthy, they may be great people, but they're carrying so much baggage from past relationships that they haven't healed, or they haven't healed from. Hey, Lori, thanks for joining in. And Sharon, glad to see you're back. So the point is, when you're starting over, you have to heal from your past wounds. The grieving the loss of any relationship, whether it was a long-term relationship or a marriage or the death of a spouse, there is a grieving period, and it just takes time. And I wish there was a magic wand that I could wave over you all and say, yep, it'll all be better. The next time out will be great. Hey, Jacqueline, thanks for joining in. So there's just so many aspects of healing and starting over. And sometimes we get to a point where we're past a relationship and we think we're ready to date, and then we start dating again and maybe even getting involved with someone, and then all of a sudden issues pop up. You get triggered by something they say or something they do that reminds you of your ex, and all of a sudden you're dealing with emotions that you don't know where they came from. It's like, and so before you lash out or verbally beat up on your new partner, stop and think about where that emotion is coming from and what triggered it. And hey, Barbara, thanks for joining in. Glad you're here. When we start feeling emotions, it's so great to be able to have the presence of mind to step back and say, "Whoa, wait, I'm triggered. Something's going on here," and you may not be able to share it at the immediate moment or in the immediate moment. But take a step back and think through, where is this emotion coming from? Why am I feeling this way? What triggered it? And then start working backwards and start thinking about, oh, this is why I'm feeling this way, because back here in this relationship, and it may be 2 or 3 relationships back, that someone did something or said something, and it just caused a huge ruckus. And now you're after so many years, or if you've spent a significant amount of time in a relationship and you've had to morph or to change to maintain that relationship, you may be unleashing some thoughts or feelings that you didn't know were there. But that's all part of peeling back the layers as you start over again. Shar says, I do feel ready, and not to replace Al, but write a new chapters with someone else, create our own adventure. Just haven't found the right relationship yet. Hang on, Shar. I like I said, you and I have talked, and I have faith that person is out there. You just have to take time. You have to, I'll say this a million times, you have to be patient, and that's not always a fun thing to do. My favorite prayer is, God grant me patience and grant it to me now. So anyway, hey, Geneva, thanks for joining in. Geneva says, I started over completely. I was in mental health for 9 years, then decided to join our family-owned business that I never had support from my partner to join. That partner is no longer part of my life. I'm living life the way I want to. I'm 1 year and 5 months out of the relationship and 3 years out of mental health, and I'm getting my life back on track. Awesome. And joining the family, I know about I grew up in a family business, and if my dad and I, so family businesses can be difficult, but if you guys get along and can do it, that's fantastic. I compliment you on that. And don't misunderstand me, there are lots of families that get along and do the right things to develop the business and grow the business. And it's awesome, Geneva, that you're recognizing your ability to step into the family business and do what it is you want to do. And that's, you see, when we start over, that's if we've had a partner that has not been encouraging, that has not been our cheerleader, that should be one of the things that you're looking for in your next relationship. Somebody that's going to be supportive, somebody that's going to encourage you to follow your dreams or do the things that challenge you. Because so many times we get into jobs that just don't challenge us, and please, don't misunderstand me. There are, and some of you that you have a job, you're happy to have a job, but it's not thrilling, it's not it's not uplifting, it doesn't feed your soul. And if that's where you want to be, if that's where you're comfortable, awesome, stay there, enjoy it. And when it comes time to retire with joy, and then go find something that is your passion, or do something that you feel very passionate about on the side. Whether that's starting a business, whether that's doing charity or volunteer work, or just crafting. Finding a craft or a hobby that just feeds your soul, because we all need that type of thing. And starting over, regardless of where you are, whether it's a new career, whether it's a new relationship, whether it's starting singleness again, there are things to fill your time and to fill your to fill your heart with passion. Geneva says yes. Plus, I was caught up into the whole codependent thing and his illness. I was feeding his illness. I was feeding. I knew I had to completely change gears. Absolutely. Especially when you recognize those things, that's the time to move on. Hey, Lindy, thanks for joining in. Hey, I love my job so much that it interferes with my dating life. Well, Lindy, that can be a problem, and this is where you have to start setting boundaries, and not necessarily with anybody you're dating, but with your work schedule. And I'm assuming you're still in real estate. Lindy and I have had several conversations over the months, and the last time we talked, you were in real estate, and real estate is a really difficult business to start developing and not spend a lot of time doing it, especially if you love it. And that's, I find the same thing doing this. I can work for hours and hours and hours, and with no questions, no problems. And that does become an issue when you try to date. But you have to have somebody that number one understands the real estate. In your case, Lindy, the real estate business. In my case, the coaching business. And they have to be individuals that are emotionally healthy and don't depend on us to make their lives. Now we have to be considerate and say, okay, I'm going to take this time off. I'm going to spend time with my woman, or in your case, your man, and move on from there. But he also, being new in your career, he has to understand that you're going to be working nights and weekends. I mean, that's just the way that is. Geneva says, I started crafting also in my basement. Awesome. Jacqueline, we have to ask ourselves, are we trying to fill a void in our life? There's a big difference between wanting and needing something. To need something is a temporary fix. Wanting something is to know deep down in your heart what you're looking for. My philosophy is trust the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. God knows what you want, and it's his will. He will bring divine connections, and he will bring the right person to you. Don't go looking for it. That's awesome, Jacqueline. That is exactly right. And that brings up a huge conversation, or a huge issue in the difference between wanting and needing. So many times after we've ended a relationship, or a relationship has been, or the rug has been yanked out from under us, we have this huge hole in our heart, this huge hole in our life, that we start searching for someone to fill it. And roughly 9 times out of 10, we end up being needy and filling that hole out of need. And if we step back and say, do I really need this person in my life, or do I want them? And a lot of you are going to raise your hand. Oh yeah, I want him, or I want her. And it's such a fine line to walk. One of the things that I found is, after about 8 years of being single, I finally got to a point where I said, yeah, I don't need a relationship. I'm happy with my own company. And all of you are going to move through those phases of life at your own pace. Some of you jump into singleness and say, yep, I'm happy, I don't need anyone. And odds are you'll end up finding somebody relatively quickly. But when you so passionately try to fill this hole, or this void in your life, it leads to a lot of problems and a lot of broken hearts, namely yours. So the idea is to get yourself emotionally healthy first. And it doesn't mean, in the process of getting emotionally healthy, it doesn't mean you can't date. I just strongly discourage dating, jumping into another relationship right away. One of the great things about casual dating is that you get to meet a variety of different people. You go out on a couple of dates, and then you move on, or you go out on a date if it's not a great date. And you observe the person you're with. Does he have the characteristics, or does she have the characteristics I'm looking for? Or you might discover something. Hey, I really want that in my next relationship. That person may not be the right person for you, but they might show you some characteristics that you really desire in your next relationship. Or they may show you something, yeah, I really don't want that. And dates and even short-term relationships can teach you a lot. Jacqueline says, and if and when it means it's meant to be, it will be. Let go and let God. and nobody knows you better than he does. He knew you before you were in your mother's womb, so he knows. Trust in him, and he will answer your prayers. That's exactly right. And that connects with some of the things that I've shared with people over the years, that I've talked about premarital sex, and how it's advisable not to get intimate with someone too quickly. Ideally, it should be left for marriage. And I've had people, countless people, and ladies, you all have told me this also, that well, what if the sex isn't great? Well, odds are it will be, because like Jacqueline says, God knows what you need. God knows what you want. And, so many times we try to outguess him, and that becomes problematic. He shows you signs. You pray, give me a sign, Lord, give me a sign to show me that he's the one or he's not the one. And he can drop sign after sign after sign, and he gives it, no, I need a better sign. And we ignore the signs that he gives us. So, we're all human. We've all walked down that road, I'm sure, at one time or another. And thank you, Jacqueline. She said, love your message, Rick. You are a man of God. Thank you so much. So anyway, it's, there are so many aspects to starting over. Again, it's getting healthy. It's being crystal clear about what you want in your next relationship. And casual dating, again, can give you some great ideas as to what you want and what you need. And in any relationship, as Jacqueline is so accurately pointed out, God will lead you. If you just have to believe in him. And so but here's the frustration I have with those of you that say, well, no, I'm not going to go out. I'm just going to sit home and sit on the couch, and God will bring the right one to me. Well, you've got to do your part in this. It's not God's just, unless you expect God to bring you the UPS man, the cable guy, the mailman, you've got to get out. You've got to be seen. And that's another part of the healing process, or the starting over process. It's always a bugger to get out and start over. Going out again, going out and being social. Especially when you were used to being with somebody. Going to some of the places that you went to as a couple becomes difficult. So you need to change your routines. Let's see. Lindy says, how many chances should you give someone who makes you feel alive? A couple of red flags. Let's see. A couple of red flags that have been put to rest by his doing. Look for more, or gratitude for the ones that have been put aside. If I understand your question, I always recommend, when you start seeing red flags, it's time to walk away. And the reason being is that typically those things aren't going to change, Lindy. It's a great question. But as soon as I see red flags, and there will be, in some situations, somebody will make the adjustments necessary to make the relationship work. But odds are those changes are only temporary, because you're asking somebody to change, you may not have asked, but he's changing who he is to accommodate you. And down the road, that will create resentment. I know it created resentment in me. When my ex told me that she didn't like my sense of humor, and I lived for 10 years with that. And it was like, how do I literally walked on eggshells in that relationship for 10 years. And then it finally just got to the point where I said, I'm out. I can't live that way. And I'm sure some of you have been through that very same thing. It may not have been sense of humor, it'd be something else. But whenever you try to adjust, and if you do it voluntarily, there will be some things that you can adjust. But if you're changing fundamental portions of your character to accommodate someone, if you're altering your values or your morals, I think that's going to be a huge issue. Or if you're asking him to do that, Lindy, that's going to be an issue that's going to rear its ugly head somewhere down the road. It may not be this year, maybe 2, 3, 5 years down the road. And when it does, and it's all going to blow up, and then you're going to turn around and say when it ends, "Oh, I just wasted 5 years with the wrong guy." And so my point to this is, when I start seeing red flags, it's time to move on. It's just it's just not, to me, it's not worth trying to adjust and accommodate to force a relationship to work. When the right relationship comes together, it's just like it's almost magical. It becomes easy. Doesn't mean there's not going to be any lumps or bumps along the way. Every relationship has those. Hey, Maria, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. Jacqueline says, be grateful for the good, but if you see red flags, this is the Holy Spirit telling you and cautioning you. So move forward and do what your heart tells you to do. Ask Rick. I know he'll agree. Yeah, exactly. We just kind of covered that one. Absolutely, Jacqueline. And that's exactly right. That's another good point to bring up, Jacqueline, is Lindy, when you start seeing red flags, that is a sign. That's saying, whoa, this is not what I want. And whenever you get to that point, whenever you recognize the red flag, and it doesn't make him a bad guy. It doesn't make you a bad woman. It just means it's not the right relationship. And what you're looking for is that extraordinary relationship. And too many of us try to fit the square peg into the round hole, or vice versa, and it just doesn't fit. And rather than trying to than taking a mallet and beating that peg in the hole, let's just find another peg. Let's find the right peg, and then it makes life so much easier. It's like a hand fitting into a custom crafted glove. It just feels right. It's comfortable, and again, every relationship is going to have bumps, and everybody's going to get bruised a little bit here and there. But if as long as you're not getting bruised because of red flags in the relationship, and I'm talking about emotionally bruised. If you're getting physically bruised, it's time to walk away. I don't care how much you love him or how much you love her. Anything physical, you need to walk away. Hey, Sue, thank you. I appreciate that. Sue says, love the analogy. You've got to go into a relationship when you're starting over in a new relationship. Go in with your eyes wide open, and that's why I always teach you to have your must have and your deal breaker list. That way, when you're under the infatuation and raging hormones, and you don't tell me that it's not there. They are. At 64, there, it's infatuation and raging hormones are still there. If it's the right relationship, they'll be there. If it's not the right relationship, well, then you may not feel the sparks or the deep connection. And again, when you find that right person, things just seem to flow. You have, as you discover and learn about each other. I gotta share this one. Shar says, still there at 75 too. All right, Shar. I love it. And that one caught me off guard. I love it, Shar. Thank you. As you dive back into dating, just again, pay attention, watch what's going on, be crystal clear about what you want, and don't accept anything less. It's so easy to get sucked into the everyday fun and games of an okay relationship, but there's always going to be something missing. And when you settle, it's not something that you'll recognize up front. It may not be something that you recognize for several years, but then all of a sudden one day you're going to say, is this all there is? There's got to be more to life. There's got to be more to a relationship than just this. And when you hold out for the right relationship, you will discover it. I mean, assuming that you're actively searching, you can't search from you can't search from your couch while you're surfing through TV channels. You have to either be online, you have to be out and about, you have to be in church, you have to be places where you can be found. Ladies, if you struggle with figuring out where to look, go to the golf course. It's getting to, in some places, I know where Jacqueline is, it's almost golf weather all year round. Get out on the golf course, take golf lessons on a Saturday morning. What better place to find guys on a Saturday morning? Go to the shooting range. They go and learn how to shoot a gun. There's plenty of guys there. And when you're in the shooting range, you can ask questions and you can meet a lot of people that way. Just think outside the box. It's take a cooking class. What better way to attract to attract a woman than being able to cook? Jacqueline says, the older you get, the wiser you get. I may question that one. Then you realize you didn't fall off the turn. Then you realize you did fall off the turnip truck. Then all of a sudden you come to your senses. Finally. Yeah. You're welcome, Sue. Thank you for that. And thinking outside the box is sometimes difficult. Look for ads in the paper or ads online and finding out what, for the ladies, find out what guys like to do. Talk to some of your best guy friends and say, hey, what do you like to do on the weekends? What is your passion? Ladies, go to car shows. You'll find a ton of guys, and it may not be your passion. It doesn't have to be, but you can be supportive if it's his. And guys, the same thing. Find out where the ladies like to hang out. Ladies, I'll ask you, since it's mostly ladies on here today that have been speaking up, where do you like to go? What are the things that you like to do on a weekend? hanging out at the beach, hanging out at a spa, hanging out, whatever it is. Just share a couple of ideas here and give the guys, because there will be some guys watching later on, I'm sure. And if there's a couple of them on here, they'd like the attention or the tips now anyway. Sue says flea markets. There you go. Flea markets, antiquing. There's a lot of stuff there. So that's, those are the types of things that you can do, and it doesn't it doesn't have to be something expensive. For flea market, antiquing, you can walk from store to store. You can walk the flea markets and antique shows and do those types of things. Shar says golfing, hiking, especially to waterfalls, to the beach. There you go. The walk in the dog park. So there's there are plenty of things to do. You just have to step outside the box, or think outside the box, and be active. But you can't do it working in your garden all day or all weekend. You have to be out there. You have to do your share. God will bring you the right one, but you have to be available. You have to be out and about and be seen. You have to be in the right place. And Jacqueline says it will happen when you least expect it. Absolutely. I can attest to that. And a lot of times it will happen when you're about ready to quit. You say, or when you take a break. See, when you're not forcing it, when you're not forcing the search, so to speak, when you don't come across as being needy, when you're at that point where, I can, I'd love to have someone in my life, but I don't need someone in my life. When you get to that point, then it becomes easy. It becomes easier to talk to the opposite sex. It becomes easier to strike up a conversation anywhere and any time with anyone, because you can have fun with it. We so many times we get so wrapped up. Oh, I want to meet this guy. Oh, or I want to meet this woman. We get all tongue tied and shook up and nervous, and we make a dumb impression. It may not be a bad one. It's just a dumb one. And it's probably a one and done impression, but you don't take that as a defeat. Just take it as a learning experience. The more times you do it, the more times you introduce yourself to someone, the easier it gets. It just is that simple. And I know, and I struggle with shyness. I've struggled with shyness all my life. You'd never guess, but I have struggled. There are times that I still, I'll go out, and rather than being social, I will just sit back and watch people. Sometimes I have as much fun just sitting back and watching people as I do socializing. And there are times for all of us that we just need that quiet time. And it's okay, and we may be out in a crowded situation or a noisy situation, and we just need that peace of mind where we can just sit back and watch. And because it just takes too much energy at times. But then at other times you're going to have to push yourself and step up and make that introduction. As uncomfortable or as much as you don't want to do it, go up and say hi to someone and challenge yourself. Bet yourself a coffee that he'll talk to you, or bet yourself a martini or a cocktail or whatever you might, a tea that he'll talk to you. And you might have your eyes set on someone, and the minute you strike up a conversation is like, oh, that was a disappointment. As soon as he opened his mouth, or as soon as she opened her mouth, it might be, oh, that I had her pegged as something else, or I had him pegged as something else. And you don't know until you talk to somebody. You have to step out of your comfort zone, and for so many of us, me included, you have to step outside your comfort zone to do these things. It's starting over in life at any age is difficult. We say that it's easier when you're a young person because you have more time, but as we age, hopefully we become wiser, we become a little more selective. Young folks just aren't as selective as we are at this point, and or at least for me. I'm mid 60s now. Hopefully you, as all of you have progressed through life, you've become more selective in your dating, in your relationship choices. But sadly, on a regular basis, I see people that keep making the same choices, wrong choices, over and over again, and then wonder why. We're all the common denominator in all of our bad relationships, and I've had more than my fair share. So I'm not picking on anyone. I'm just saying. So anyway, there are so many aspects to dating, and starting over is always a tough prospect, and it takes time. It's so easy to get discouraged and say, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. I just want him to show up. But I'll say it took me 11 years to find the right one. So it just, again, it takes time. And it doesn't mean that if I had put in a greater effort, that might have happened sooner, but it might have taken longer. I don't know. God has a way of working his hand. So anyway, if you guys have any quick questions, shoot them in real quick. Otherwise, we'll plan on next week. Next week, I should be in Ironwood, Michigan for a few weeks. It's that time of the year where I head north. Although I'm not quite sure why, because we have a forecast for snow here in Kansas City tomorrow. And I'm not a happy camper about that. I was in Texas a couple of weeks ago, or a week ago, and was kind of getting acclimated to waking up to almost 70 degrees and 90-degree days. And, it's just, and it's only 53 for 55 for a high today here in Kansas City. So, it's springtime. Hopefully we're going to have some sort of summer out of this. But anyway, next week I should be, the plan is, I will be in Ironwood, Michigan, and starting to broadcast from up there. I may broadcast from the campground where I'm at, or I may broadcast from my office up there. But if you have any subjects or questions that you want me to cover, let me know. In the meantime, if you have questions, feel free to shoot me questions. If you want to dig deeper into dating and some of the things that I believe about dating, and check out my book, Dating Backward, A Practical Guide to Dating and Finding Your Soulmate. It's a great read. It's an easy read. It's just a tick under 200 pages, and there's even some pictures in there, so you can skip over a page or two. Anyway, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback and their Kindle e-reader, and otherwise go to my website, ricksoderbeer.com, and go to resources, ricksoderbeer.com /resources, and you can order it directly from my website. and we take MasterCard, Visa, Discover, and PayPal, and all that fun stuff. So anyway, I hope you all have had a great couple of weeks. I've missed you, but it was a good for me to clear my head and think through some things. And I hope you all have a great and blessed week. I love you guys. Thanks for all your great input. And I will see you next Monday right here. Same bat time, same bat channel, and different bat cave though. And have a great and blessed week, everyone. I love you all. Thanks for joining in.